Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I have my June reading wrap up for you. June was a relatively good month of reading. I did read quite a bit. I mostly gave out 4 and 5 stars. In fact, it was entirely 4 or 5. I didn't give anything less than 4 stars, so that was pretty successful as reading months go. But let's just get into it, shall we? I read 13 books by 13 different authors. The longest book I read was Supernova by Marissa Meyer, which was 560 pages. The shortest book I read was The Pear by, I say this name wrong every time, Ekvtimishvili, which was 163 pages. My total number of pages for all the books that I finished in June was 4,454, which was slightly down from May, but I didn't finish as many books. But my average page length per book went up slightly. It was 342 pages. I read 2 books that were over 500 pages that earned me £2, and then the rest earned me £1 each, which gave me a total earnings of £15, which is pretty good. Apart from, I didn't spend quite as much as that, but I was already quite in the red in my book budget. But I had a day, I was having a really bad day, and sometimes when you're having a really bad day you find yourself in a charity shop buying books. It's a form of self-care. That's my excuse. Anyway, I got 4 books from charity shops and I had 1 pre-order come in, so I'm just going to quickly tell you what they were. The first book I got in a charity shop was called The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. This I picked up because it featured on the Alaska episode of Strong Sense of Place, which is my favourite bookish podcast, and it was £1.49. And then in another charity shop on the same day I got 3 books, and this was maybe slightly naughty, but never mind. So the first one I picked up was Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont by Elizabeth Taylor, not the Elizabeth Taylor you're thinking of. I picked this one up because another bookish podcast I like called Tea or Books, they talk about Elizabeth Taylor occasionally on there, and I hadn't heard of her until this podcast. When I saw it, I thought I will give it a try because they talk very highly of her as an author, so that was £2.50. Next, I got a book that I had out from the library, hadn't had a chance to read it and had to take it back. An author I've been meaning to pick up for a long time, and some of my booktube friends keep having a go at me because I still haven't got around to reading any of his books yet. But anyway, well, saying that, I have read the ones he wrote for Wheel of Time. So this is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I have been meaning to read Brandon Sanderson for ages, and I will get to him soon, probably sooner now I actually own this book. They're saying that I do have one of his young adult novels in storage, which someone got me for my birthday years ago and I haven't read it yet. But yeah, I'm really keen. I am really keen, I promise, to read Brandon Sanderson. So this one cost £2.50 as well. And then finally I picked up a book that Justine from I Should Read That and Angela from Literature Science Alliance both talk about a lot, and I have read another book by this author and really enjoyed it, so I thought I would probably enjoy this too. So this is City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett, and I've previously read Foundry Side, and I have Shorefall, which is a sequel to Foundry Side. This is another trilogy of his, and this one is actually complete, so I'm gonna try and get to reading this soon while I wait for the final book in the Founders trilogy to come out. So this was also £2.50. So my charity shop spending came to £8.99, and then I also had 1 pre-order come through, which was This Poison Heart by Kalynn. Bayron. I read Cinderella is Dead last year and really enjoyed it. I was in 2 minds about picking this one up, and then I heard the premise and I hadn't heard what that was before, and when I heard the premise I thought, oh, I actually really want to read that quite soon. I may get to it in July, depends how my book a day and ebook eradicator are going, if I have time, because Cinderella is Dead was a really quick read and YA fantasy often are, and this isn't massively long, so I might try and pick it up towards the end of the month, or if not I'll probably read it at the beginning of August. I think this is the first one in a duology, but I'm not entirely sure. So this cost me £5.39. So that meant my total spending in June was about £14 something, I'm not entirely sure, and I earned £15, so my balance has gone up a little bit, or I should say my debit has decreased a little bit, so I'm now on minus £18.66. Hence the reason for trying to do book a day in July, because I really want to try and get myself back into the black. While I'm talking about books that I acquired in June, I'm just going to go through a couple more that have arrived that I was going to say I didn't pay for. One of them I kind of did, but I have a subscription to Pear, who are my favourite indie publisher, and so the latest book from them came through, which is Yesterday by Juan Emar. He was a fairly important Chilean author of the 1930s, but has never been translated into English until now. This is his first book to be translated into English. Juan Emar is the pen name, and it's based on the French phrase J'en ai marre, which means I'm fed up, which I think is really awesome. Really excited. I'm trying to get to this in July because it's really short, so it would be a good one for book a day. And then my lovely friend Ree, who sometimes watches, hi Ree if you're watching, we met up and she had a spare copy of The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Dare, and she really loved this book, really highly rates it, so she asked if I would like a copy, and I said yes, of course, give me free books, always. But because she speaks so highly of it, I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy it too, so thank you so much Ree for that one. The final book that arrived, if you're in the UK and you haven't yet signed up to Caboodle, you really should. It's from the National Book Token company. They have loads of competitions and stuff like that, and you collect points, and whenever you get a book token as well, you can add it on and that adds to your points, and when you reach a certain number of points you get a free book, and I reached that number, so I picked from the list, and the book that I picked was The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell, because I've heard a few people say some really good things about this book. Yeah, so I quite wanted to read it, so I got sent that. Thank you Caboodle. I think that's all the books I acquired. Let's go back to the rest of the stat. Oh, at this point I will say, because of all that book buying, my TBR slightly went up. I started the month on 611 books on my physical TBR. It's now gone up to 616, so it hasn't gone up too much. That was partly because I was mainly reading library books. We'll get onto that in a second. So I didn't read that many off my TBR. Did read a few, but not loads, so that's why that has snuck up a little bit. For publication dates, 2 of the books were published in the 20th century and the rest were published in the 21st century. The book that was published the earliest was A Severe Mercy by Sheldon Vanauken, which was published in 1977, and this is part memoir, part reflection. It's a story of a young couple, and one of them tragically gets ill and dies quite young, and so it's a story of how they met and fell in love and that sort of thing, but also they were good friends with C.S. Lewis, and it includes some correspondence from him, so that's the main reason I wanted to read it. So he had quite an influence, particularly on Van, who was the surviving partner, and how he dealt with his grief. And then I read 4 books that were published in 2021. A couple of them were review books and a couple of them were new releases. Okay, I gave 4 books 5 stars and the rest I gave 4 stars, so it was a really solid reading month. I was really enjoying all the stuff I was reading, so that's really good too. The book that took me the longest to read was Broken Bodies by Karen O'Donnell, which was one I picked up for a couple of essays that I was working on, and so I finally got to the end of it. That took me 119 days. And then the book that I read the quickest was... oh, there were 2 books that I read in 3 days. So one was Supernova by Marissa Meyer, and the other one was Record of a Spaceborn View by Becky Chambers, and this was a reread, and so they both took me 3 days to finish, so that gave me an average reading length of 21 days, which isn't too bad. The book that had been on my TBR the longest was A Severe Mercy, which I'd borrowed from my dad a really long time ago, and I finally got around to reading it. Sorry Dad. I had been borrowing this since 2014, so it'd been on my TBR for 2,472 days. I think I'd actually borrowed it before that. That's the date that I started using Goodreads. But then I also had 3 books that I started on the day I got them, mainly library books. 2 library books and 1 new book. So that brought my length on TBR right down to 265 days, which is amazing really considering. I like that number to be less than a year for the average for a month, and so the fact that even though I read one of the books that had essentially been on my TBR the longest, I'm really happy that that managed to bring that number right down. 6 of the books were on my published TBR for June and the rest were not. And then where the books came from, 1 book was from my owned TBR, 3 books were new that I bought this year, 5 books came from the library, 1 book I borrowed from my dad, 2 books were review books either from NetGalley or from a publisher, and 1 book was a reread. I read 8 paperback books, 2 hardbacks and 3 ebooks. I read quite a range of genres, so 3 were Christian non-fiction, 1 contemporary, 2 dystopian, 2 fantasy, 1 mystery, 1 non-fiction and 3 science fiction. 3 of the books were for a young adult audience and 8 were for an adult audience. And then for publishers, read quite a good range again, but it worked out that 7 books are from the big 5 publishers and 6 was from indies, so that's really good. It's actually for the year I'm on half and half, which I quite like, quite happy about that. For author nationalities, 5 were from American authors, 4 were British, 1 was British Nigerian, 1 was Ecuadorian, 1 was Georgian and 1 was Nigerian. And then for author ethnicities, there was 1 Black American, 1 British West African, 1 Eurasian, 1 Latin American, 1 West African, 4 White American and 4 White British. So that gave me 5 authors of colour and 8 white authors, so that is a little bit imbalanced, and I definitely need to be focusing in the second half of the year on reading more authors of colour to try and get that a little bit more equal. For author gender, I read 3 books by cisgendered men, 8 by cisgendered women and 2 by non-binary or gender fluid authors. And then for my challenges, 1 book was translated from a foreign language, 2 books were review copies, 1 book counted towards Read Around the World, which was The Pear Field, which is by a Georgian author, and I completed 2 series, which is very good. And then for author diversity, so as I mentioned, only 5 were from authors from marginalised ethnicities, so I need to work on increasing that over the coming months. 3 authors were from the LGBTQIA+ community, and 2 authors have openly talked about mental illness. And then for character diversity, I hit all the markers, which were marginalised ethnicity, LGBTQIA+, disability, mental health and neurodivergence multiple times. Actually, most of the books I think I read featured at least one of these in characters, certainly for the fiction, harder to say for the non-fiction. So that is all my stats. When I've given all the books 4 or 5 stars, very difficult to pick a least favourite, so I'm not going to try. And then for my favourite book, I will just mention, I don't think I'm going to pick it as my favourite book, but I would like to say that on reread I upgraded Record of a Spaceborn View from a 4-star to a 5-star. The first time I read it, I hadn't enjoyed it quite as much as the other 2, and I still wouldn't say it was my favourite. I think A Closed and Common Orbit is very hard to beat as my favourite in this series, but I definitely did enjoy it more on a reread, and so it got bumped up to 5 stars, which is very exciting. I think I connected more with the different characters this time, and I liked the sense of reflection and like thinking about why do we do the things that we do. Yeah, a lot of that really appealed to me. I think it really was the connection with the characters that actually made it go up for me. The first time I read it I hadn't really felt that connection, but I enjoyed the characters a lot more this time around. So that's an honourable mention. My favourite book, I think I'm going to go for Do You Dream of Terra 2 by Temi, just because of the 4 books I gave 5 stars, that's the one that I think is going to stay with me the longest, and the one that I also think is the most underrated. I haven't really heard many people talking about it at all, and it was absolutely excellent. So this book is about, it's a parallel or alternate universe, I should say, an alternate universe set in 2012, and it follows a group of astronauts who are preparing to leave Earth for a distant planet called Terra 2, which in satellite photography looks to be very similar to Earth, and it's going to take these astronauts 23 years to get there. There's a team of experienced astronauts and then a team of junior astronauts who have trained for many years to get to this point, and only 6 of them are selected, and they started with several hundred candidates and then whittled them down to the 6th best. So the story is about their journey. I mean, this was science fiction, but it wasn't so much about the science as the way humans interact. This is really the story of 10 people who are trapped together for 23 years and what is going to happen to them and how they interact. Something significant happens just before the ship is meant to take off, like a couple of days before, which means the crew changes at the last minute, and it's kind of all of the rest of the book is to do with the fallout from that and what these significant last minute changes mean for the interactions between the crew and that relationship, and it's a really detailed exploration of the human character and how different people react to different circumstances. I thought it was really, really excellently done and had no hesitations giving it 5 stars, and I think that's why I've picked it for my favourite book for June. So I think that's it for today. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. Let me know some of what you read in June, or if you've bought any new books recently, had any pre-orders come through, that sort of thing. Let me know any of that too. Or if you just want to let me know that you have been here, you can leave me an emoji in the comments. Seeing as 2 of my favourite books are sci-fi books this month, let's say a spacey emoji. Let's go for a space related emoji if you just want to let me know that you've been here, or let me know that you've made it this far in the video. You can also like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already, and also follow me on my social media. All that information is listed for you in the description box below. But that's it for today, so thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!